Book 2, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for a bookish update. So first, I'm going to talk to you about what I'm reading, and then I'm going to have some books to haul for you guys. First, I am reading for my next classic horror novel. I am reading The Omen on my Kindle. I think this was written in the 70s originally. I have never seen either adaptation before. I am familiar though with whenever they do like the top 5 of horror films or whatever, and they mention The Omen, they always show one particular scene, the scene with the nanny on the roof being like, "This is all for you, Damien." That's the only scene I was familiar with visually. I think I've seen bits and pieces of the one that came out. I think it came out in the early 2000s, the remake. But I've never seen the original. And of course, naturally, people always say that the original is probably better than the new one, than the remake was. I mean, I don't know. I feel that's such a strange phenomenon that, like, you make a movie, and then years later you think, oh, let's remake it, because I bet I can do it better. And then almost always the remake is never as good. Or it's maybe okay, or like close, but it just does not meet the original. But these producers and screenwriters and directors keep remaking these popular movies. And I guess because sometimes it does work, and it's also money, of course. If it was popular when it first came out, then we can make money again by redoing something that was already popular to begin with. And and of course they'll say, "Oh, we have a new generation," and maybe in a small way that's part of it, but I think at times it's also a money thing. But anyway, I would like to watch both of them at least at some point. But in this book, they did have a preface of the author talking about what inspired, why he wrote it, and he does kind of spoil it for me. But deep down, I probably already knew how this is gonna turn out. But in case you don't know, it's basically the story of the Antichrist. And it's not fun like that Terry Pratchett book. It's not a fun book. This is a very dark story. And I just read a chapter where there are some very horrifying things that happen in this book that are just so, like, it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, and not just because of what it's about, but the things that the characters who worship the evil one, who worship the evil one, some of the things they do in the evil one's name are just so horrifying and disturbing. But it's classic. It is classic horror, and I wanted to read it. And and at the end of the day, I just look at it as, it's just a book in the end. I don't know if this could really happen, and so it doesn't horrify me. I think it would horrify me more it would be harder for me if I could actually see it. So if I watch the adaptations, which part of me is like, I would like to include as consuming the story, but then I don't know if I could handle the visuals. The actual seeing it physically, not just my imagination, but actually someone adapting it into a film. Because this is, this is scary stuff. But I'm choosing to look at it as, as fiction in the end. I mean, at least as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, so I'm reading The Omen. It looks like I'm almost done because there are only 13 chapters, which I think that's very interesting. They are what it's about, and it has 13 chapters. Like, I'm sure the author did that on purpose. But So yeah, I'm reading that. Now, in a more lighter, less tense and horrifying read, I am also reading for October, the Framley Parsonage. I had a feeling I wouldn't finish this because, or even get to the other books I wanted to consider reading, like rereading Wuthering Heights and then getting to Dami and Son. So Dami and Son's gonna have to wait. Because The Woman in White took me longer than I hoped to read, and that wasn't because I didn't love it. Is I loved it. It's a long book. And it's slow paced story. So, but this one, what I've noticed about so far this series, the Barchester series, each of the books, even if they're super long, the chapters are not that long. So I do get through it quickly, which, not that that's the most important thing. But it does help feel like I'm making progress and I've accomplished this. But I am enjoying this. So far we have one of our main characters is Parson Robart. I don't know if I'm saying his name because, I keep wanting to say Robert, but it's spelled with an A instead of an E. Like, it's spelled Robart and not Robert. So I keep wanting to say Robert, even though it's not spelled like Robert. It's spelled like, it looks like Robart. He is the parson of Barchester, or Barchester, and is patron to Lady Lufton is his patron, and in the beginning he's going to visit some acquaintances that Lady Lufton does not like and doesn't approve of. Gatherum Castle is called. I think it's a duke or someone that he's gonna go see, and she doesn't approve of who hangs out when he goes there and everything. And his wife tries to talk him out of it, but he goes anyway. But he still insists on going, and he ends up having to help his quote unquote friend Sowerby, who is in need of money because he's in terrible debt. And Robart is like, okay, I'll help you out and pay this money for you. And it's just slowly getting worse and worse, this situation with this having to help this guy with financial troubles. And I just keep thinking, you just know it's going to get worse. Like, every time you think he gets a little bit of relief, all of a sudden something else is revealed about it. And he's like, okay, well, let's deal with that be taken care of, and then everything will be fine. It just keeps getting worse. And then we have his dad. Robart's dad just died, and when visiting for the funeral and everything, his sister Lucy must come with him. She's not married. She's his younger sister, so she's gonna live with her brother and sister-in-law. And immediately, Lady Lufton's son, the new Lord Lufton, is completely smitten by her. He's intrigued by her, he really likes her, and he's starting to fall for her, and she is for him. But then she is told by her sister-in-law that Lady Lufton does not like that, because she wants her son to marry Griselda, who is the daughter of Dr. Grantley, or Dean Grantley. I think he's a dean now. He's the dean, archdeacon. Him and his wife's remaining daughter, because they lost all their kids, sadly, and she wants her son, and Lady Lufton wants her son to marry this woman, but he doesn't like her. He finds her boring. He's not excited. He doesn't really care about her at all. But of course, Lady Lufton thinks that she knows what's best. And so, like, right now, he is just in, Lucy has been talked down of it, been told, oh, this is not good, the mom, Lady Left, doesn't like it, and you need to turn him away. And she does, because she's a good girl, she's loyal, she's respectful, and she's does what's proper, and so she's like, okay, I will just make him believe I don't love him, and I'm not interested in him, but she's regretting it. And so I just know there are gonna be shenanigans, and the mom, Lady Lipton's gonna keep pressing them and forcing these two, Griselda and these two, together. Although I think also Griselda is interested in someone else as well. Like, she likes this other guy, I don't remember his name. There are so many characters in these books. There's so many names, and unless you remember the names, it's gonna be very confusing and hard for me to explain the plot, because there's so many characters and entanglements, and so yeah, that's where I am right now. Like, Lord Lufton has told Lucy that he's fallen in love with her and everything, and she's like, no, I don't love you, we can't not be together, your mom doesn't like it, so you need to go, you'll forget about me. Of course, he's probably not going to, she's gonna think, oh, he's gonna move on and be with Griselda or whoever, and of course he's not going to. It's just gonna make him desire her more. I mean, that's how these stories work when it comes to, so yeah, this is fun. I'm enjoying it, and it's a nice breather from the Omen. Take a break from this horrifying story that's still a page turner, still an intriguing, morbid kind of way type of story. And definitely but good to read something that's a little more fluffy and pure and hopeful kind of story. Okay, so now time for the book haul. First, I'll show you the books I ordered from Thrift Books. So, I read the first book in the Magicians trilogy, The Magicians, which, again, I've said this before, I say it again, I don't like when authors just name their trilogy after the first book, or their series after the first book. Like, I don't understand with TV shows, certain times, that, like, Game of Thrones sounds like a more catchy title, it rolls off the tongue and everything. Like, a Song of Ice and Fire does not roll off the tongue as easily. I mean, if you say it enough, then it'll be fine. But I can imagine first time watching, people would probably shorten the title anyway when talking about it when that show came out. But yeah, so a Game of Thrones flows more and is easier to say. But yeah, it still bugs me whenever authors just can't come up with, which I don't know how hard it is. So maybe it is super hard to come up with a good title for your trilogy, and maybe the title, The Magicians, is the perfect title, and was the perfect title in Lev Grossman's estimation, and he just decided to use it for both the title of the trilogy and the title of the first book. But I still think it's kind of lazy. But I'm not an author. I'd like to be, but I'm not motivated enough. So I read the first book, and what I've noticed I have trouble with series is, like, sometimes I can enjoy the series when I've read it, but if if it takes me too long before I buy the next book, then I might get distracted by another series, and then slowly over time just be like, as much as I enjoy it, I'm not interested in that anymore. That's what happened with the Vagrant Gods trilogy. Like, I read the first two books, and again, I enjoyed them. I had a good time with them, and I was also, after I finished the second one, I was all set to read book 3. It hadn't come out yet, and I was like, I'm gonna read it when it comes. I'm gonna go get it and now I'm just not as interested. And plus, whenever I go to Books A Million or Barnes and Noble, all of a sudden I'm like, I want to buy a new one. I don't want to buy the next book in a series unless I'm buying more than one book. And of course, with Books A Million and Barnes and Noble, I'm most likely not gonna buy more than one book, because chain bookstores cost a lot. And so I usually try to get off Thrift Books or, some other, or use bookstore to shop at, and that did not happen because that's a fairly new series. Although now they have it. Now Gibbons Bookshop does have the Vagrant Gods trilogy. So I made sure to get the third book in the Magicians trilogy before I started book 2. And that is Magician's Land, This is the third book. And I very much enjoyed this. I think I did a film day review of book 1, I think, or at least I talked about it in my wrap up of September. So I don't know if I'm gonna read book 2 and book 3 in September. Wait until next year. But I mean, I would rather not do that. But part of me might think about doing that, or might just subconsciously do that without meaning to. But if you don't know, this is basically a series of this college student who, he lives kind of a boring life, a very mundane existence. He's miserable. He's unhappy with his life. He experiences depression, and his only comfort is his favorite childhood book fantasy series, The Fillory and Further books. And then he finds out during a college interview gone wrong, that he finds out there's magic is real. There's a school that teaches you magic, a college that you go to, and he also finds out that Fillory is a real place. And it's about him learning magic and becoming part of the world of magic, and how learning magic doesn't make anything easier. In fact, it makes the world far scarier and a lot harder, because you're never, once you go back to the real world, you can't, and people that aren't magical won't understand you, and they, I think it kind of gives a message of it's not as sugary sweet as people think. And so it's a trilogy. And this was actually a trilogy that I was intending to read it, and I had all 3 books, including a hardback version of the last book, and I was all set to read it. Then the TV series came out, and I got more into the TV series, and, back when I was thinking, I would rather just watch the TV show or the movie instead of reading the book, and as much as a reader I am, I would do that for quite a bit. And then Murphy Napier, and I was all set to send them back to Gibbons to donate them back. And then Murphy Napier did a video reviewing the whole trilogy, and all of a sudden I was more back to being interested again, because the way she described the series and how excited, how much she loved the book. Because, yeah, in all honesty, there are times when booktubers can convince me to try to give something another shot. Not necessarily, it's more because, if they told me themselves in person, we directly interacted, there's no, there's a 50-50 shot that I'm going to give it a chance, because I have this weird thing about if someone tells me, you should read this, all of a sudden I'm like, no, I don't want to read that. Just because you think I should read it doesn't mean I want to read it. Which is weird, because some of these people recommend are friends, and, But I'd rather discover a book on my own, or decide on my own what I want to read. And, but if they're hyping it up, and I was interested from the start, there was interest from the start. If they're talking about in a, doing a video where they talk about it without talking to me specifically, then I would be more prone to check it out. I would rather just choose to watch a review of a book that I might be interested in than someone directly telling me, if that makes any sense. So Murphy Napier did a review and absolutely loved this. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this another shot. Because this was, and I'm glad I did, because I actually really loved book 1. I had a good time with it. And of course, I kept picturing the actors from the TV show playing the characters, and some of them weren't described exactly like the actors, but I still couldn't help but picture those people as the characters. And then when I'm done with this trilogy, I'm gonna rewatch the show. And it's only 3 books, so I should get right to it. Now the other book I got was one that originally I was gonna get it off Kindle. Just get the Kindle version of it. But then when I was buying that book, right now this was the only other book that I was really excited and I really wanted to read. It was the only one that was holding my, was on my mind. It was the one I was interested in buying. It was the only one because I was looking through, and none of them really, I wasn't in the mood to buy them. So I bought Part 1 to Shogun. So yes, I bought it. Unfortunately, because it is a big book, it's divided into 2 parts. And actually, I did put on my Amazon wish list the version of it that is the whole thing. And that still cost money. But surprisingly, the hardback was cheaper than the paperback, which I don't get when that happens. Like, I noticed there are times when a hardback version of a book is cheaper, is just a little bit cheaper than the paperback version. I'm like, how? I mean, I don't understand that logic, but I've never been good with, that kind of stuff, or understanding that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I ended up buying, and I was, like I said, my original plan was on Kindle, but I decided to go ahead and just buy this because it was what I was most interested, other than that book, and of all the books on my thrift books wish list. And I just took off that other version and just put, on my wish list part 2 of this. And this is, you have this Englishman who finds himself on the shores of Japan, feudal Japan, and he's kind of, held hostage there. And has to kind of adapt. So 32 chapters in this one. And I've just heard so much about this, and it just recently got adapted. And again, this is another one that it had been adapted before into a miniseries, and now it was adapted into a TV show, and they are going to do season 2, a second season. And I've heard a lot about this from Mike's book reviews. And he doesn't normally read this. He was, saying he doesn't read a lot of historical fiction. I mean, although he does love Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth. So he really likes that series. And then he really liked, what is that? That Western. Which I have it, and I can't remember the title. That famous Western, that I actually bought also because of him. Sorry, my necklace is, the part that connects the 2 ends is down here, and I prefer it in the back. So, anyways, yeah, it's just something, when Mike talks about it, unless I'm just not interested in at all, then the way he's one of those booktubers who, the way he talks about books, unless it's just not on my radar in any way. In most cases, it seems like, he's someone whose reviews or opinions, granted, he's a complete stranger, I don't know him, but of course you could say that about everyone on BookTube. But he seems like he gets me interested in a lot of books. I don't know what it is, but there's just some booktubers for me personally that really catch my attention, and whenever they talk about a book, all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, I might want to check that out. I mean, that's the same with Olive from Book Olive. She's definitely got me more into nonfiction. But it's I don't know, I guess it's because of the way, their presence and the way they talk about the book and sound like they know exactly what they're talking about, and they know what's good, what's good entertaining literature. And I'm just using that word because I like that word. So yeah, so this is the other book I got through my thrift books order. Now, the next set of books I actually use 4 books. So I broke my rule for thrift books and bought 4 books instead of just 3. Couldn't help it. It is the end of the month, so I'm not, and plus I'm not counting and I'm not counting books from Gibbons Bookshop, so it's all good if I, but let's see. first we have, I'm going to show you the nonfiction. So I've been slowly buying these biographies. I have the Hamilton book by Ron Chernow on my Kindle that I actually liked. I enjoyed that. It was, I know that one person, I was talking to one of my commenters was saying that there are other better books out there about Hamilton. And maybe there are, I don't know, but I liked the Ron Chernow, and it helps that I was listening to an audiobook. I wasn't actually physically reading. That definitely helped because, that book that was a big boy, and maybe it is overwritten, I don't know, but it helped listening to audiobooks. So even if it was a super long overwritten work of nonfiction, audiobook got me through it quicker. And it was not a Libby. So it was not a borrowed one. It was one that I bought. I spent the money on. And then I have the John Adams biography, which I have not finished. I need to finish that before I read any of these other biographies. So really the only one I finished was Ron Chernow's Hamilton. So I gotta get the John Adams one finally finished before I read these other ones. So the one I bought today was Thomas Jefferson, A Life. It's just such a common title for a biography. The person's name that's being written about, and then a life. The life in time, or the life of, So this is Thomas Jefferson biography, and he's definitely an interesting figure, and he's definitely the figure that is just, he probably a lot of us readers and writers would probably connect with him best. It's just what the impression I've got from the little bit I know about him. He seems very like he reads a lot, and he's just a very reserved and quiet, shy person, but very passionate at the same time, and he's a writer and everything. So there's a lot of qualities that I think a lot of his readers and writers can relate to in Jefferson. And I have a book that's discussing why people love Jefferson, why he was one of the favorite presidents. That's another book I need to finish as well. So the problem is sometimes these biographies, the way they're written, can seem kind of dry. I know that other people have said that they felt like David McCullough is not dry, and I wish I could say that. I agree, but I don't. I think he can be a little dry, but you're also reading a book that's telling you information about this historical figure. So I don't know, maybe it can't help it. But a lot of people say that it can. So before I read this, I kind of finish the John Adams biography. And I'm almost at the halfway point with that one anyway. I just have, so I surely could, if I really set my mind to it. And then we have, okay, so this next one was one that was inspired by another book I picked up that I didn't buy. It's Sound and Music by Rose Tremaine, and I have looked at that book. I have picked up and thought about buying that book multiple times, so maybe one day I will buy it, because sometimes that can happen. And I always look at my Goodreads review, and I always focus on the 3 stars, since that's kind of middle ground. You neither love it nor you hate it, It's just kind of, it was worth that those reviewers read it and were like, I didn't entirely regret it, but it has faults. It's not completely flawless, and it's not for everybody. And one of the reviewers mentioned this author, Ian Pierce. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I mentioned this author, and I don't think this was the same book that they had brought up in that review of the Rose Tremaine book, because it's not about the same topic. In the book that they brought up was about the same topic that Rose Tremaine was writing about, or the same time period. And this is not the same time period, this description. It's early 1900s, and that was like more in the 1600s, and they said the book that Ian Pierce wrote was in the 1600s as well. It was about the same history. But this is the only one that they had, because I knew I had seen the author's name. I seen E.M. Pierce when I was looking on the shelf. I passed it, and I recall seeing the name. So I went back, put that one back by Rose Tremaine, and went back and grabbed an E.M. Pierce and see if maybe I'll be interested in that. And it just sounded intriguing. The plot of this sounds interesting. It's not, like I said, it's not the one. I don't think it's the one that they mentioned. But this is Stone's Fall, and it's basically about this guy, John Stone, falls on a window and dies. He was a financier and arms dealer, had a lot of money, and he manipulated a lot of people, and it's this mystery of, did someone kill him, or was it an accident that he fell out the window? And his wife, his widow, hires a crime reporter to investigate, to figure out if it was truly an accident, or someone killed him. And it's one of those ones where there are multiple timelines, goes back and forth. From the times we follow are 1909, 1890, and then 1867. But it sounds really intriguing. It kind of makes me think of the book I'm currently reading, The Emperor of Ocean Park, where, they don't know if someone had killed the father, the family patriarch, or if he just died of natural causes. I feel like the mystery is kind of the mystery of that one and the mystery of this one are similar, in that where we don't know, maybe that person was actually, someone murdered them because they are an unlikable person, they done horrible things, or if it was just truly an accident. So yeah, it sounded really intriguing. And I'm also trying to, I want to expand my historical reading horizons, and as I've always said, what's good about Given Memorial Bookshop is that it does allow me to do that. Although I almost did buy this one, I think it's Milgrave, this one fantasy series that I keep seeing. I've crossed paths with it, both in that store and then in a thrift store where my sister lives. I also saw it there, and I almost bought it both times, but then I put it back. So maybe that's a sign. Maybe I should have bought it. But either way, I'm happy with my purchases. So, and like I said, I tend to okay, so then we have a classic. This is another one of those NYRB editions. It's called The Liar. It's by Martin A. Hansen. It is a Scandinavian classic. Let's see. And it's like you have our main character, Johannes Lai. He's a teacher and a clerk on an island in Denmark, off the coast of Denmark. And he's in love with this one particular student of his. And she's engaged to one guy, but that guy left. And then he's gonna come back he's supposedly gonna come back in the spring. And there's another guy she's being courted by, an engineer. And Johannes is recording all of this, his experiences in his diary. And what I'm wondering is it gonna be one of those where they see her as this beautiful, glamorous woman, like he's gonna be obsessed with her? I mean, is it gonna maybe turn that on its head, and we're gonna find out that woman isn't as glamorous as they think? you know, like, I'm wondering if it's going to be that kind of situation. I mean, I hope it is, because I think that's more interesting. But I don't know. And it's not super long. I mean, I was more intrigued by this than the other one I picked up. Because there were like 3 or 4 of these editions of classics there. And, you know, one of the ones that I kept picking up and looking at, and I decided, I mean, which has a lot there, that with that bookshop, where there will be a book that I pick up and look at, and then every time I go there, it's still there, and I keep thinking, is that a sign? Is that telling me? Or maybe I'm just being delusional, and it's just a coincidence that it's still there, you know. And sometimes they're small books, sometimes they're not small books. But not every book, like, just because it's this edition or whatever, or it's a classic, doesn't mean it's going to be the book for me. I just really like these editions, and I want to collect some of them. I want to have a collection of them. But then, you know, they're like, one of them I got rid of, Anglo-Saxon Attitudes, which I liked the story. I did. It was very intriguing, but I ended up deciding I was going to reread it. I mean, I almost regret it, but it's too late now. It's lost in the ether somewhere. I don't know where it is. I mean, I think I already sent it away, and it's not there. I did not see it on the shelf, so someone probably bought it at some point. But it was, Anglo-Saxon Attitudes was actually really intriguing. Definitely one of those books that you could see people discussing it on BookTube and or in book clubs, because it definitely looks at a certain culture of people. But yeah, this one just sounded really intriguing. Like I said, I'm curious what kind of, if it's going to be like, are they going to glorify this woman? Is he going to become obsessed with her? And is there going to be like, is she not as glamorous as he thinks she is? I mean, I think it does in the description. It says suspenseful conclusion. Oh, yeah, this is what I was saying. It says, such are the chief players in the compact drama recorded in Johannes' ironic, self-lacerating, and anything but reliable diary. So it says reliable. Anything but reliable. So I'm wondering if he's an unreliable narrator and we can't trust his judgment. And that this woman is not going to be what we think. So that's The Liar. And it is called The Liar, so that must be referencing that the diary is unreliable and that you can't trust his judgment on this woman, and maybe he sees her in a certain way. You know, which this woman is also his student. And that could be a little questionable morally. So the last book I'm going to show you is The Pope's Rhinoceros by Lawrence Norfolk. So this one, just first of all, the title caught my attention, and it's based on like an actual true story, true events, where the Pope decided to or a bribe was, the Pope Leo X was given a bribe that they will find a rhinoceros. And it's just the fact that it's this specific animal sounded really intriguing to me. Like, it just, the idea of it. Like, I've never heard of someone bribing someone with finding this a certain kind of animal, like a rhinoceros. And I don't know anything about the popes, so yeah, it just sounded really interesting. So that's my book haul, and that is how my reading is going currently. As far as spooky season goes, other than reading The Omen, I finished watching the first season of Beetlejuice, which I might have already told you that a part one, and I don't know when, but eventually I'm hoping to give it to my nephew so he can watch it, because, he can't watch the movies because he's too young, but maybe he can watch the cartoon, which is for kids. But I'm gonna show it. My mom was like, maybe you should show it to your sister first. So when they come for the holidays, then I'll show it to her. Just to see if she thinks it's okay for him to watch. And we'll have to do it discreetly because I don't want him to see it. Because if he sees it, he's gonna want to watch it. And my sisters, approve of it and see if it's okay for him. I mean, it is originally written for kids, it was a show for kids, so I think it's okay, but I'm not a parent, so. But yeah, I had fun with it. It was really fun, and it's really silly, some gross out humor, but yeah. And then I actually finally watched, and I was saving it for this time of year, for spooky season. Watched Only Lovers Left Alive, which is not a traditional vampire movie. It's not as horror, them being monsters or anything and having a little too much fun. It's more about immortality and what you do with it, and how not everybody might enjoy it as long, because living forever, it could potentially get boring after a while, and nothing is as thrilling. After a while, you live so long that it's like nothing, everything seems repetitive. And the male vampire played by Tom Hiddleston, Adam, I should remember the name. I don't know why I didn't think of the names. Adam and Eve. He's going through a bit of an existential crisis, and he's not happy. And he's done this before, according to Eve. And it's him even thinking about contemplating if he's ready to end his life. Which, there are ways to end a vampire's life. And so Eve, calls him and offers to come, because it's set in modern times, offers to come visit him and spend some time with him to make him feel better and try to reassure him that life is worth living. And while she's there, her sister shows up. Her sister Ava, who's a little more wild, a little less tame. Like the two, Adam and Eve, have become more tame, and they only drink, they are a little more controlled with they're not so ravenous and constantly eating people. They just, find ways to get blood. And at one point there's a scene when they're playing, I think it's chess, and she remembers that she has some popsicles made out of blood that she gives him, which I thought that was funny. And the sister Ava's a little more wild and a little more uncontrolled, and she still is all about constantly going after humans and killing them and feeding off of them, and how that kind of disrupts their lives, and he's not happy with their presence and everything, which is kind of cool that I did not realize that they did that movie together, because Tom Hiddleston and Mia Wazowski, I can never say her last name. Tom himself says her name in interviews for Crimson Peak, but I don't remember how he said it. Mia Wazowski, Australian actress. They were in Crimson. She's the woman in Crimson Peak, and I did not realize that. And I'm guessing that, I don't know what came first, Crimson Peak or that one, or Only Lovers Left Alive. But that was really cool. And what was even more cool is that she is very different than the woman in her character in Crimson Peak, and I liked it. It was so much fun to see her play a more wild, crazy character. Because normally I see her play more subdued characters, very intellectual, or very reserved and very shy characters, that know who they are and are very good people. Except for when she was in Omen as the younger sister. That one was not, she was necessarily a good person in that one. She was a naive little girl that had a crush and did not realize the consequences of her actions. But she wasn't wild. She's a little more, well, she wasn't wild and in that one. But in this one, she's more wild and fun, and she's kind of the antagonist in a way. And so yeah, it was a very different role for her. So this was a very intriguing vampire movie. It was very different. The two, Adam and Eve, did not revel in their being monsters and having all this power. They just kind of living their lives and focusing more on, music and literature and art and all of that, and the importance of that and appreciating that. But then they were also like, they lived so long, or at least Adam lived so long, that he wasn't entirely happy all the time. Also, another interesting thing is that Anton Yelchin was in this movie. As he wasn't a vampire, he's just some kid that, like, a rock star who had all these guitars and stuff. He would give these rare guitars to Adam because he collected them. And him and Adam were friends. And it's funny because he was in the remake of Fright Night as the main kid in the story, Charlie. And he's dealing with vampires in that movie. So that was kind of funny that he was in 2 vampire movies. May he rest in peace. We lost him. We lost a potentially great actor with his death. The actor. Anyway, so also I did rewatch Sleepy Hollow because after reading the spellbook of Katrina Van Tassel, I needed to watch a different version of Sleepy Hollow that was a little more happy for Katrina and Ichabod. And they have actually happy ending, is all I'm gonna say. And so yeah, I need to watch that again. So I watched that. I also watched so those are the only 2. I did watch, of course, I remembered this time that last night was a new episode of Agatha All Along, so I made sure to watch the episode last night, rather than realizing today that, oh wait, I forgot. So I finally watched it, and I am in the middle of watching a reaction video from New Rock Stars after the episode, so after I'm done filming, I'm going to finish watching that. And then I'm gonna watch Crimson Peak this evening, and maybe after dinner, I'm gonna start watching that one. And then I have all these other movies that I want to watch before the end of October. Although I can watch these movies anytime. I mean, only a couple of them are strictly Halloween movies. Not that it matters, because I can watch these movies whenever I want. I don't have to watch them on Halloween. But of course, you want to watch them during Halloween. Like, you want to watch Hocus Pocus and movies like Hocus Pocus and Casper, and which I don't have on DVD. I watched that on when it came on TV the other day. I'm trying to think of other ones that actually Sleepy Hollow 2, and I'm trying to think of other movies that strictly take place during Halloween. You want to watch them during Halloween. Even Practical Magic has a Halloween scene, so it's almost like I feel like I should watch them during Halloween time. Not that there's a rule or anything, but I feel like it makes more sense to watch them for Halloween, or like at least right before Halloween. So yeah, so that is what is going on. I hope your reading is going well right now. If you recently borrowed a book from the library, or you recently purchased the book or books, I'd love to know what they are. And I hope your reading is going well. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't, and click the bell icon if you want to be notified about my latest videos. And I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!